nice. He can get his own bucket. He can defend. Good passer, smart player. Very much fits kind of the culture of what they're trying to build. I just think he's like a perfect. If you're looking for a secondary ball handler to put next to Cade, like that's as good as it gets, in my opinion.
What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Wednesday, April 27th. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Jeff Iafrady, my guy, Troy Sergey, my guy, Kool-Aid,
hey,
and then the special guest, the man of the hour, the first repeat guest on the From Half Court podcast, the cardigan of the bun and cardigan, the man of the Athletic that covers the Detroit Pistons, the legend of the beat writers and league fits, my man James Edwards III. James, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Nice to meet you guys. Appreciate you having me on. It's an honor to be the first repeat guest, and that intro was great. I felt like Ric Flair.
Again, man, you
the
got
profiling, you did the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Dude, you kind of dress like the Nature Boy sometimes whenever you're pulling up the games.
I try. I don't have as much bedazzle as the Nature Boy, but
well, I mean,
definitely an inspiration. Shout out to the Nature Boy.
You can't have this. You can't have as much bedazzle as the Nature Boy.
No,
you can only try to come close. Yeah,
that's a different tax bracket than
just a little bit. Just a
little different of a tax bracket.
Oh my gosh. Well, James, you are, I mean, you had to be the first repeat guest. I mean, you're also, in addition to being a great writer, I mean, it's just been cool getting to know you a little bit better this year and meeting you at games and becoming a friend. You're just, you're a great guy, man. So I just love talking hoops with you whenever I get the chance. So just glad to have you.
Can you tell the rest of Twitter that?
Dude, I don't know why.
I'm a nice guy.
I don't know why people come after you so much. It's insane. I wonder.
I poke the bear because I treat the internet like what it is. I'm 30. Like I was outside when there wasn't an internet. You had like dial up. Like it's fun and games to me. So I poke the bear, but there are legit. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm a nice guy.
You are. You just you like to antagonize a little bit, which I do too. I think that's why I vibe with it.
I agree. I don't bully. Oh, yeah. I just try to stir up the pot a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we do here too on From Half Court Reach. Every week we talk all things NBA basketball. If you like that, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Be sure to subscribe and follow Woodward Pistons as well, because we are a part of the Woodward Pistons network, baby. That's why we got my guy Kool-Aid here and Jeff from Woodward as well. We're all just working together, man. But with that, James, I want to start on a little bit of a lighter note. Speaking of those league fits, looking at I gotta ask you, which one's your personal favorite? This is the one that League Fits actually tweeted out.
Oh, he's got him on deck. He's got him on deck.
I got him. You think I got James Edwards coming back and I'm not going to be preprepared?
That's a good one because that's at the that's at the Garden, right? That's at the Garden. That is the tunnel in which the buses pull up. Like if you watched any type of 90s wrestling and they do like backstage promos, like they've been done in that spot. It's a good one. I don't know. It's a nice fit. Like I think it's clean. Yeah. It's got a little pizzazz. We're in the Garden, baby. I ain't J-Lo might show up. You were about to find me scrubby.
Yeah. Now this one isn't on the same. This is the last one. This one isn't on the same level. But I saw the athleisure fit, and you're even pulling it. You're even going all out on practice days, man. Are those what Mambos are those? Those are some Kobe's.
Those are the Kobe 10s. What the Kobe? Funny story. I had him in. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
He was just saying those were crispy.
Thank you. Yeah, I had them in college when they first came out, and then somebody stole them. And then I found them again recently. That fit. So that was I had just got off a plane. Like that's my flying.
This was off the plane,
attire.
James Edwards.
Yeah,
those sweatpants scream confidence. Like that's confident.
I'm wearing an all pink sweatsuit right now. You can't really tell, but
was that in Boston too? Was that in Boston?
That's in Miami.
Oh,
so that's in Miami. That is actually as Johnny's tweet says, it's mine and Marvin Bagley's birthday, March 14th.
Oh, look at that.
That fits just that. Yeah, that's just like that's flying. Yeah, that's flying to Miami.
Yeah.
Something light. The first one, that was a good one. I don't know if that was my favorite this year, but that was a good one.
You know what I call that? You know what I call that outfit, James? That's fly and be fly. You know what I mean? You're flying, but you're gonna be fly in the process. You know what I mean?
Sure. You never know who you might see. I've run into some celebrities at airports. You just never know. Just maybe you catch a Regina Hall or who else is Amila Kuna. You just never know who's watching.
100%, man. Well, all of us are here today, and James, obviously you're around the team a lot, but a lot of us here are big Pistons diehards. You know, obviously we're all fans, but also, you know, I write for Woodward Sports talking about Pistons stuff. I don't go nearly as I'm not covering the team like you are or anything. I'm not around the team like you've been, but you know, I certainly pay attention. And James, I went back before this and I listened to the last time you were on, and I asked you to one of the questions I asked you was to describe the Pistons season in one sentence. And you said, and I quote, this Pistons season has been random as hell. And that was around February 2nd, right before the All-Star break. Would you still stand by that sentiment? And if not, what would you say about the Pistons season now that we can kind of put a bow on it?
Weird as hell. Yeah. Switch random for weird. Yeah, let's switch weird. I mean, just the fact that they flipped a switch when they did and like looked like a pretty good basketball team for the last 2 months. And not like pretty good might be tough. Like they didn't have a winning record or anything, but they look like they were fine. The games that they won, they looked good, and when they lost, I don't remember them getting blown out or anything after the break. I don't remember them like really putting up any stinkers. Maybe that Portland game.
Yeah.
Was that after the break at home?
Yeah, I think that might.
I remember the Boston loss. Really, like I remember one loss. That was really good one.
Yeah, the Portland one's the only like bad loss that comes to mind. Yeah, it was weird, like for them, and I wrote about the team meeting and stuff like that. But I think for them to kind of flip a switch to beat Boston in Boston right before the break, given all that's gone on, they were bad leading up to that win, and then take a break and then come back and pick it up. That's not easy to do. It's not like they really hadn't got momentum. They got a nice win before the break, and then they all went away and didn't see each other for a week. And then they came back and played good basketball. So very weird season. Fun season to cover. But definitely if you're a fan, I would say you probably categorize it as weird, just given how it started, maybe whatever your expectations were going in, not meeting those. Cade not playing right off the rip. Jeremy and Kelly being out for a while. Frank being out after he got hot. It was a weird season for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it just seems like they couldn't ever get like a consistent stretch of games where everybody was healthy or on the court together. You know what I mean? Like there was always something. It always felt like. And,
no, for sure. And then they got a couple of games of that late, and it showed, I mean, maybe what could have been if it was consistent through the season.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And speaking of that, kind of like what could have been with that whole season, one of the things we saw over the weekend was that Scotty Barnes of the Toronto Raptors won Rookie of the Year. And obviously I know a lot of Pistons fans are up in arms about it and are pissed about it. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, we might have thrown some rants our you know, their way a little bit, but what was your takeaway from kind of what went down with that voting? Kind of like, I'm not sure if you saw like the full numbers of the voting or anything, but like they got like 78 like third place votes, all that kind of stuff. What was your takeaway from that? And do you think knowing Cade and kind of covering him, I know from kind of my sources, I know that he's going to be going to have a chip on his shoulder next year, I think. But what are your thoughts, James?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the ones that voted. I had a ballot. I went Cade, Evan, Scotty, and all three of them could have won it. I think for me, the reason I took Cade is because in my mind, he was the only rookie not treated like a rookie.
Right.
And while his numbers might have been inconsistent and this, that, and the third, I'd be pretty safe to say I didn't get to watch all of Scotty and Evan this year, but safe to say they weren't trapped and double teamed as much as Cade. They weren't the focus of every game plan. teams treated Cade like his first ever game against the Magic. They were trapping him before he even played an NBA game. So like he was treated like a vet in his prime, and I think that says something. I think that says about how good he is already as a rookie. So that was kind of what I was gonna go Mobley, but I sat and thought about it, and I was like, I think I'm gonna lean Cade for that reason alone. Scotty, yeah, I mean Scotty winning. It's funny. Me and Nick talked about it on the pod. He randomly texted me last week and just said, "If Scotty Barnes wins Rookie of the Year, I'll buy you a jersey of anybody I want." And I didn't expect Scotty to win. Like I knew who I voted for. I think that shocked me that he won because it felt like Mobley was no doubt going to win.
Right.
However, and I hate to say this, like you saw like the Scotty steam kind of pick up a little bit the last few weeks, but I thought that was kind of just like, I hate to say the term, but like internet basketball favorite guy. Like I didn't think like voters would go that way. So that kind of surprised me. Like I thought it was Evan was going to be a lock. And I wouldn't have been surprised if Scotty was too. I was expecting Mobley, Scotty, Cade, to be honest, based on just kind of talking to other people who were voting and perusing Twitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, that surprised me a little bit. But like I said, all three were deserving. I don't think Cade was snubbed. I don't think Mobley was snubbed. I think there was three really good rookies. The only thing that bothers me is people going to like Vorp and all this other shit. Scotty, like I don't know. I don't know. It's
after a certain point, it just feels like a Stat Muse circle jerk, and I just like guys, like let's just bounce around.
And I'm not I'm not the anti-analytics guy. Like I like analytics. I use it in my writing, but like it felt like every single
I
get you. It was stats coming out like, yo, this player had the most amount of points with the fewest amount of like heartbeats in a second. It's just like
or like win shares. I felt like his backing was based on very obscure stats. I don't know, not obscure stats, but very stats you could debate. Stats that help you with being on a good team.
The reason why I would say Cade Cunningham to me was snubbed was because of the things you mentioned. I believe those other two rookies had fine seasons, but the narrative changed. It was so heavily Evan Mobley in the beginning of the season, heavily Evan Mobley because they said, he's contributing to wins. And then you see Cleveland's team start to falter the second half of the season while Cade's team and Cade playing more consistently, getting healthy, coming back. You see his effect on winning with this team.
No, I agree.
I feel like that was a point for the NBA to actually say, you know what, we understand that the overall record might not be there, but we have to be able to show something towards this guy elevating this Pistons squad towards an almost 500 record after the All-Star break, after we can clearly see he's healthy. It just, I don't know. I feel like it was a missed opportunity and for him to land third.
No, I agree with
that. The way the voting went, it just was like, wow. All right.
I think there's two things with that, and it's part of the reason why I never voted. I don't know why I decided. I always wanted to do it at least once. I've turned it down in the past for varying reasons, just because, and this is one of them. A lot of the people that vote don't get a chance to watch every game. A lot of them are covering one team like I am. And that's not fair. Like I don't think that should be. I don't think awards should be decided by guys and gals who aren't able to sit and watch as much because again, when the Pistons are playing, the voter who covers the Suns might be playing. So I would say very few probably even made that connection that kind of once Cade got rolling, the Pistons started winning more games.
That's
and I think some teams and people have said or criticized Cade of that, or maybe undervalued Cade because he's the first option on the team when Scotty and Evan aren't. But I think being a first option as a rookie, I think that's a great argument right there alone to be rookie of the year, that you have that much respect from your teammates, that much respect from your coaching staff and GM to be put in a situation like that. So
especially when the measurables can show there's a stretch of wins here. Like it's not just he's just out there running around the court. Like you could tell he was putting his players in position to win, and they just added a halfway, playable Marvin Bagley into the mix. I mean, imagine if he had like a real serviceable every game starting big man in there.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
Look at that.
I can tell you what, like Sean alluded to, I look forward to this chip on the shoulder.
And James, what about when these
James?
What about when these rookies match up too? Like,
right?
Isn't that important? Shouldn't that mean something to these like voters? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is a team game at the end of the day. I mean, again, I voted Cade because like I said, I think of all the rookies, he was the only one not treated like a rookie. So
yeah,
right. That's perfect way to say it.
That's enough for me to say that this guy is the best of this class. But I understand why.
Yeah,
it just feels like people put too much of an emphasis on winning. Like it bothers me too when it comes to like championship or bust. Like if you can't win a title, you need to tank. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with being Portland. There's nothing wrong with being Denver. There's nothing wrong with being those teams. I don't know. Like if you're consistently a second round, third round playoff team and you win 43 plus games a year, like I feel like most fan bases would be happy with that. It's something to go. You get a reason to go watch your team every other night, or a reason to go buy tickets or put on the TV. Like I don't know. I hate the culture of everything's about winning.
I agree with that. I mean, like, I think, I think there's just a double standard with awards in general, just in how they're seen as far as where winning is valued and where it matters. Because then you look at the MVP voting, and we might be a little bit more willing because of what they've done statistically to go a little bit more in the playoffs, a little bit lower in the playoff standings. Now, obviously, it's one thing to go lower in the playoff standings and then pick a guy whose team lost 59 games in a season. That's a different conversation. But I think to your point, I think that's just one thing with the award system in general in the league. I think we just have different standards for different awards for different it's not consistent. But
right.
Yeah.
No, and I'm kind of contradicting myself because I voted Jokic for MVP. But to me, it was like he was the best player on a team that had a bunch of injuries, was without its second and third best players, and they still got what, 46 wins, 45 wins, something like that. So like it factored in for me, but I don't know. Certain things it's odd.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, do you have a question for James?
I mean, I got questions, but it really has to do with free agency.
Yeah, all right. We'll get to that. I'll lead us there. Don't worry. I'll get us there. Don't worry. We can get there. Yeah. James, before we kind of keep going into like, off-season stuff, you came back from break and Twitter blew up to hell today because someone posted a clip of Bill Simmons bringing up the idea of the Pistons trading for Zion. I'm a frequent listener and watcher of what Bill Simmons does. So anytime he throws anything out there, I know what to expect because that's Bill Simmons is just firing off shit all day. That's what he does. So like him just going, why don't they just trade for Zion for Sadiq?
I agree. But I want to say this. It's not like he's parading himself as like a guy that knows inside. Like it's literally just him and his friend doing what all of us do. But and me and Nick talked about it on the pod. Go ahead. We'll get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just gonna quick say, like, and the other thing is when he's using his sources, he tells you.
Yeah,
so,
he says it.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just gonna say, first of all, obviously check out the Bun and Cardigan for the full conversation with you, Nick. On that, but
it's interesting to me, and I'm sure other fan bases do it, but I'm obviously focused in on one. And one thing I've noticed about Pistons fans, and it's primarily younger ones, because of how bad it's been since Sean, how old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay, so it's been pretty bad for most of your life.
I grew up with I started watching in the 05 season. So so pretty much the majority of my life they've been bad. Yeah.
So, and again, I don't know about other fan bases. I might be wrong.
Your soul, man. I'm sorry, bro.
Troy literally started watching in like the Jonas Jerebko, Kyle Singler years.
I became a fan. I watched a little bit of last year with Billups, but my first big year was actually the Iverson year. And then when I got really into it was Jerebko's rookie year.
So y'all deserve Cade Cunningham.
Right. We deserve Cade, don't we, Sean?
Yeah, we do. We do.
But there's like a Pistons fans have insecurities, and I've noticed it that they need it, and again, it's a very we're on Twitter all the time. That is a small fraction of the fan base. That is a small fraction. Yeah. When I say Pistons fans, I'm talking about Twitter.
A certain section of Pistons fans.
A certain section of Pistons fans, the loudest Pistons fans.
Yep.
They need validation from national people. It's so odd to me. It's like
it's the state of Michigan in general.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's like anytime their team is brought up, whether it's just two guys, which it was Bill and Ryan doing, just shooting the shit and tossing out stuff like we all do, whether we're at the barber shop or sit next to our friend and drink, like just throwing shit out there. It's a topic of conversation for the day. Why we wouldn't do that? Well, they shouldn't do that. Why would they do that? And then it's like I've noticed it too. Like there's stuff I'll like report for weeks and months. And as soon as somebody with 1 million followers tweets it, it's like everybody's jumping on it. But there's something about this fan base and getting the respect from the national guys that really, or having the team talked about nationally, that really grinds their gears.
Yeah. Well, I think
it's very interesting to me. I don't know why that is.
Well, I think it's because like the Detroit versus everybody thing. I think some of it's gone a little too extreme, because it's like, listen, 100%. If they're saying something like, because it's one thing if like, oh, well, Cade he only got like a couple first place votes, 78 third place votes. Like that could be a fun, like, oh, Detroit versus everybody thing. But like, if someone just gives a valid criticism that like Detroit hasn't been playing very well this season, go yourself. Detroit versus everybody. This is bull. Like, you know what I mean?
Right,
it's like, no, that's
and James, you don't watch the Pistons without watching the Pistons, shit like that.
Right. Yeah. One thing I would add to that you mentioned with the younger fan base, though, is because we don't see our team talked about on SportsCenter,
100%,
or the Take, and I think that's what fuels a lot of this right there.
Hey, bro,
I think Blake Griffin's 50-point game. I think maybe that quadruple overtime game back in 2015. I mean, those are like the only big things that come to my memory of like Pistons on ESPN, and then with the first pick, I guess too. So it's just so little in media and national media attention that just gets, I guess, the younger generation riled up.
Yeah.
You didn't miss nothing in 2004 either. They won the championship and started talking about the Lakers.
Yeah, that's just what it is. And it's interesting to me that like there are very few national guys who are watching the Pistons. Like it just is what it is, but people just latch on to every word. It's interesting to me. And so the Zion thing, it didn't surprise me when I saw the clip. I was like, oh, they're definitely going to eat this up because somebody with 1 million followers is talking about the Pistons. But it's like, for them, they were just shooting the shit and it became like the topic of discussion all day on Twitter. I was like, just throw out some bullshit. Like, you think that's enough to get Zion?
No. Well, even if it did, like, do you like? I don't even know, like, if the Pistons would like want to take is Zion a Troy Weaver guy? Like,
does he even fit the roster? Right?
Well, that's
for that package. He's a Troy Weaver guy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All due respect to like Sadiq. I mean, what was the proposed deal?
It was like Sadiq killing him in like a first, wasn't it?
Like 2 picks. I mean, at the worst, 2 picks.
Yeah.
So what are the odds Killian and that pick become anywhere near Zion? I mean, that's a no-brainer trade for that. That package is nowhere close to Zion Williamson.
Just I guess just Zion being in the conversation just triggers people for some reason. Just because of recency.
I get it. Absolutely. It's interesting though.
But his ceiling's still pretty high, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I'm afraid of Zion. Like I would have took Ja number one. I said that then. I just think the injury stuff's real, but. If somebody said that's all it took to get Zion, it would it's gonna stink to get rid of Sadiq. But
you get
Zion. If Zion's healthy and playing, that's Giannis with a high top fade.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Kool-Aid, do you have any questions for my guy James here?
Hey, I do, man. It has something to do with this hat that you have on. No, I'm just playing.
Green.
I'm gonna leave the hat alone.
Go green.
Go blue though.
Go white.
Go blue though. But But with Cade, I asked Rod this as well. I wanted to get your perspective on it. Mm-hmm. I know that the media, they focus in on their teams, but have you heard anything from maybe the players or other coaches or people within other organizations about what they feel about Cade?
Like as a player?
Yeah, as a player, because I know like people like DeMar DeRozan, they've had some special things to say about him. And it just seems like they have a completely different perspective than some of the media.
Yeah. I mean, the stuff with some of the players has been out there. KD's spoken very highly of him. Mm-hmm. I know CP's a fan. Booker's a fan. I'm trying to think. Is there anybody else that comes to mind? I mean, he's a guy he's well respected. A lot of those guys knew about him for a lot of those guys are just always like, even somebody like Booker, who's 4 or 5 years older than Cade, like they pay attention to the hoop circuit. They pay attention to who's number one. Like they know they've seen these guys play. They know how nice they are. And Cade is a guy that's always kind of just been like your player's player, plays the right way, could go get a bucket, has a unique game, smooth, plays at his own pace. I think that draws people in. And then, the coaches, even when he was going through his slump, like they knew how good he was. Like there's a reason he was seeing Hedges and double teams his first game. Like they know how good he is. And I always thought it was interesting. I think the Pistons' tune changed as the season went on. I think you've noticed it. Like, I think if you guys remember, like early on in those Dwayne press conferences, like Cade's going to be a really good player, but he's not this right now.
Yeah.
Like and then as the season went on, it's like he's that guy. Like you heard Dwayne say it. Like you could see, like as he got going and he got more comfortable, like you could see like everybody starting to realize, like, oh, like he is that dude. And it's not that they didn't think that. It's just that where he was struggling to start the year, struggled before, as he like going through all that stuff, and they just needed to see it, and they saw it, and you could just tell the tune changed. Like, oh yeah, we got one.
Yeah, Jeremy's shots went down, Cade's went up. That's what it seemed like.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. Before we start talking more like future stuff, because believe me, I think it's where a lot of the interesting conversation is now. I mean, we could take a lot away from a 59-win season, but at the end of 59-loss season, but at the end of the day, kind of want to move past that, even if there's been positives, as quickly as possible. But I do want to take my victory lap with you real quick, James, because when you were on the pod last, the fire Dwayne Casey movement was probably at the loudest it was. But now I am hearing crickets. So with that, what do you think what do you think was the adjustment kind of mid-season on like Dwayne's Coach Casey's level? And what do you think that like last part of the year showed, like how valuable he is to this team? Because I think, in my opinion, I think it was on full display as the season went down the wire.
I think the biggest thing that showed that worked in Dwayne's favor is that the guys never quit on him. They had every reason in the world to pack it in, to have stuff start kind of sprinkling out, X, Y, and Z. We knew that there was some type of team meeting that happened because we were waiting 45 minutes after a game for the first person to come out for the press conference. Like we knew that's not normal. We knew something was going on, but then they talked about it. Like this isn't stuff that like was just creeping out. Like there's turmoil and stuff like that. I think in the NBA, when you talk about coaches in today's NBA, everybody wants to champion the X's and O's guy, and the guy with the best, who can draw up the best play, the best ATO, the best schematics, XYZ. And those coaches obviously have great value. But I think the most important thing for a coach in today's NBA is to get players to want to play for you, to want to play hard, to buy into what you're preaching. And the fact that the Pistons played their best basketball at a time when they were they had won one of 11 games. It's the middle of February. The All-Star break is coming up. Like that says something about like who's in the people in charge, Dwayne, Troy, getting people to buy in, preaching the right things. I know it might sound like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, no pun. But it's like there's no other explanation. You get guys to play for you. It kind of shows that they believe what you're preaching, or they believe they're seeing the work pay off, and that makes them believe. Like even they think back when it was not going so well. Like, okay, I see what coach was saying. I think that's a valuable thing to have in today's NBA.
Yeah,
you guys are gonna hate me. Can I sprint and get my computer charger?
Oh,
Can you
yeah,
guys
absolutely, man. Yeah, do that real quick. Yeah, 100%.
All right, you guys make fun of each other. I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you know, with that, I just think it's an important thing to remember is that like you got to have guys that want to play for you, man. And Troy, I just kind of want to like get your thoughts on that. Like, what do you think about that is going to pay dividends for the Pistons going forward?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that first formulates a culture. I mean, I think that's the most important thing moving forward is you have an already established culture too. And then you got guys that you can bring in, similar like how you remember when you talked about with Terry Foster on the podcast about, you know, how when the culture was already established, you had guys coming into the team and it was just like, hey, you know, welcome to the team. Yes, but you're going to play basketball our way. And I think if you have a coach that can design that of our, this is how we play, this is what we do, this is what we're about, and the players do buy into that, then other players that you get along in this rebuild, in this restoration process, they're going to buy into that too. So I think it starts this spiral, this uphill in a positive way, uphill spiral that I think can pay out in the long run, especially when, and I think 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be talking about the contending Detroit Pistons.
Yeah. And that's what makes Cade Cunningham such an important pick because of the leadership that he brings on and off the court, and a young player at that. You know, it changes the whole way that you have to build or can outlook to build your team as it relates to, we need to go out there and get a wily old vet that might take up some of the cap space just to teach these guys. You know, when you have Cade out there, I think it does make, of course, it makes Coach Casey's job easier to manage the team, to be able to say, hey, let's put these sets in and have a guy like Cade be able to go in and really put his guys in the best position to succeed within that, you know. And I think the cool thing with Coach Casey is when Cade Cunningham was talking about him earlier in the season in some of the press conferences, he said he talked to other guys about Coach Casey first. And the guys that he mentioned are like all-stars, man. These are some of the best players in the league who have all said that Coach Casey helped them in their development at various points throughout their career, you know.
And even Ashton, I think, said that it was the perfect fit for Cade to have a guy like Coach Casey to coach him. He said that the family was really nervous going into the draft that Cade would fall to a team which a coach that wouldn't help his progress or wouldn't be there. And they were very thankful that he landed in Detroit because of Coach Casey. So absolutely.
And think about this. Would they be saying the same thing if they were being drafted here the year that Drummond was?
Oh, right.
No.
Think about the condition of the team and the front office and just where it's at today, man. Like I'm grateful for a head coach and the front office, you know, personnel like Troy Weaver and Coach Casey, and what they're doing to the rest of the team and for the rest of the team, the culture all the way down to the Motor City Cruise. I'm all for it.
It's just nice to see a vision for once. I think that's the nice way to put it.
I like the pleasant look on your face, Sean.
We're not Sacramento, Sean. We're not Sacramento.
Oh, thank God.
Like the last decade, we can wash the buffoonery years away.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah. And James, you were around for a lot of those years and for a lot of those interesting things. I was even thinking earlier, I remember when a couple years ago we were talking about whether or not we should trade for Mike Conley to add on to the Blake Griffin roster. You know what I mean?
Like, first or second year,
Second year,
second year,
yeah, that was a roller coaster, man.
But with I forgot about that.
Yeah, but hey, enough of the past. I think we got to start talking about the future, and we'll get into the draft in a second because, in my opinion, I think the free agency conversation is pretty interesting. And you, James, earlier in the month, reported on how the Pistons have some real interest in Jalen Brunson. For those that might not be super familiar, can you kind of give the TLDR? Obviously, they can go to theathletic.com. Be sure to subscribe because James makes great content over there. If you're not reading that, then go yourself. But James,
what
he said. Both of them said.
Yeah, there we go. But James, what would you tell people about those Jalen Brunson reports that are out there?
First, what is TLDR? I always see it.
Too long, didn't read.
Okay. It's
a really stupid way of saying the summary.
Okay.
But I did read your articles though, James, because I
I trust you. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Pistons have the most cap space. Jalen Brunson is one of the most coveted free agents coming up, and I think everybody had the Cade and Luka comparisons. They have a similar style. Both kind of go to the beat of their own drum, a little slow and methodical. And it's worked out a little. It's done good in Dallas with Brunson and Doncic, and obviously the Pistons look at that kind of vacant 2 spot. I don't even know if you want to call it a 2 spot, but another guard spot.
Yeah.
They're obviously adamant that they'd like to have another ball handler next to Cade. I just think somebody like Brunson is the perfect fit. I mean, he can bring the ball up. You can run stuff through Cade off the ball, have Brunson spearhead the offense. You can vice versa. Nice. He can get his own bucket. He can defend. Good passer, smart player, very much fits kind of the culture of what they're trying to build. I just think he's like a perfect, if you're looking for a secondary ball handler to put next to Cade, like that's as good as it gets, in my opinion, is like the Jalen Brunson. Or funny enough, you know who else would like kind of look good in that role is the new and improved Reggie Jackson.
Yeah.
But you just like that
different
kind of
player.
different player, healthier secondary ball handler. That's obviously a glaring need the Pistons need. Corey Joseph has occupied that spot, and he's obviously at this point probably not a starter on a playoff team. And they're looking to turn a corner. And I think you look at Jalen Brunson, it's like who would be a better fit that's not a multiple time All-Star. And I think Jalen Brunson makes the most sense. So you see why you have that connection right there in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And
I mean, he's been the best player in a playoff series.
He scored 72 in 2 games against Utah.
Yeah,
a team
a defensive team. Yeah,
honestly, I
will ask this though: Does the what's his name? I can't believe I forget his name. Michael Porter out in Denver. He had that run, got paid.
Yeah,
and then kind of just regress. Do you foresee that at all being able to happen with Jalen Brunson? Or do you think this dude is kind of just shown to be solid?
And let me add to that. Real quick. And at what price tag would you probably say? I'm gonna shake my head.
Yeah, that's another one.
I think the thing for Porter was just the injuries. Like I think he was regularly hurt. And I think Brunson, I've thought Brunson was good before this little hot streak. Like he's just a good basketball player. Another one of those Villanova guys. Like he's been good since he's been in the league.
True.
I think now it's just on a national stage, and people are starting to see it. Price tag wise, me personally, I think Brunson has proven more at this stage than Reggie Jackson did when the Pistons made the trade and signed, and he got what, 80 mil? So maybe you call that, people say it's an overpay for Reggie Jackson at the time, which is fair.
It's back in the day too.
Yeah, I
wasn't
wouldn't.
That a 5-year 80 too? So I think,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be the difference. I think.
What is 3 for 85 come out to? How many a year is that?
That's about 26, 27 a year.
But then my issue with that is, as much as I like Jalen Brunson, he's not Fred VanVleet. And Fred VanVleet's making just, is he even making 20 million? He's making just over 20, right?
Yeah, he's making just over 20. Yep.
And does that limit us from getting a guy, I'm not going to say any names, but a guy in that talent group as Brunson in a year or two after? Does that limit us?
No. A year or two, no. Just because you still got some time with the young players and their rookie deals. And then you guys have to remember too, like they have a lot of cap space now. And what if you trade Jeremy for a pick?
Right.
That's even more. Yeah, I don't know. I think I look at it. It's a different game, different time, even from when VanVleet signed. But if the Pistons are going to want to sign Brunson, they're going to have to go a little bit over, especially if Dallas is interested. But do you pay him $26 million when somebody like VanVleet is making 20? Like that just doesn't make that much sense to me. But then if you're paying him 18 a year, 19 a year, does that entice him to leave Dallas for Detroit? Like I don't know. It's a tricky. I think it's going to be an interesting to see where they go. I don't think they'll overpay significantly.
Right. Yeah,
I know there's news, and that's the good news, right there. You don't think they'll overpay?
I could be wrong, but it could be wrong.
But then again, too, say we don't sign Brunson, and to Jeff's point, because of the money reason, and then maybe a year, summer 2023, would that give us the ability to maybe sign someone in the bracket above, as far as talent wise, to be
or go out and trade for somebody possibly during the season?
Yep. I think that's all possible for sure, and I think. I'm in the camp, and I don't think they'll do this. I hate using the term because I think they'll try to make the playoffs. Say you strike out on Brunson, you make a run at Ayton, it doesn't work out. You make a run at Bridges, it doesn't work out. You throw something at Levine, it doesn't work out.
Right.
And you're stuck with your picks and some vet guys. Like, I don't know. Would it really? I know it probably hurts you guys to watch, but if they went and got another top pick the year after and then had all the cap space in the world when it's one of the best free agency classes in a while.
Sure.
I'm not against that route, but I also don't watch this team for enjoyment either. So I'm not gonna put words in your guys' mouth. I'm there because I get paid to be there. So I don't know if you guys could do another year of that.
Oh God, no. James, I do want to ask you though. Do you think, and I know the answer is yes, the lottery, because let's say the Pistons, because I've done some lottery spins. They were trash. All right, I got 5, 5, 6, 7, whatever the hell I got.
I've decided to never go on that site again. I've just decided to never spin.
We actually did a beat writer mock draft today that's running Tuesday. So you guys will see where I picked and what number I picked and who I picked for the Pistons.
If they get,
this will already be out by then, by the way.
Okay, yes.
And let's say they land at 5 or 6 and they do take a guard. Yeah. Like, do you think that will change ultimately the Jalen Brunson decision? They'll kind of move. It's either, maybe they don't get Miles, maybe they don't get Ayton, and it's just like, all right, we'll just, who can they get? Like, what's the plan?
Nah, I don't think so. Like, if they drafted like 6 or 7, they got like Benedict Mathurin, I don't think that stops them from getting Jalen Brunson if they can.
They can, okay. Like, even Shaedon Sharpe or any of those guys, they can still.
Yeah, or Shaedon. Yeah. Especially Shaedon Sharpe, because I don't think he'll be ready to play. Yeah.
And really, James, you saying it as cool as Troy says it too, man. When he talks about, I'm trying to stack talent. I don't care about position. I want the talent, man. If they fit the scope of the players and what we're trying to do, we're going to get in here and we're going to figure it out. Like, I like that.
I mean, how many guys? I mean, it's much better now than it has been, but how many guys in this roster are you sure, without a doubt, will be in the NBA 4 years from now?
3, 4.
Yeah, with what happened to Sekou and how we saw Stanley kind of go up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I would say Cade for sure.
Yeah.
Sadiq. Jeremy. Isaiah.
That's about it. That's like
Frank,
that's like
maybe
Marvin. Would you throw Marvin in there? Or?
Marvin,
he's not for sure yet, but he could be for sure.
I think he'll be in the league. I think he'll be. In the league.
There's one guy I want in that list.
Who? Hamadou? Killian. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying for sure. I only have 4 for sures.
For sure, that's the key.
And Kelly and Corey aren't on there because they're 30. They may not even be playing in 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean?
Well, this ties well into my question I had prepared because
really quick, they need to keep getting talent, people.
Yeah,
I know everybody's eager to turn a corner, but you need good players to turn a corner.
For sure. Yeah, sorry about that. Real quick, one thing with the roster, I'm looking at these names. And I'm asking myself this question I'm looking at how many of these guys can we actually realistically expect to be back next year? Because I think there's a realistic possibility that Troy Weaver's looking to change a little bit. I mean, anytime you lose as many games as you do, I think it seems to me like we're going to want to start competing a little bit more next year. Do you get the sense that there's going to be some turnover, a good amount of turnover this summer? Or do you think outside of a couple major additions and stuff, do you think it could just be just some shuffling around, kind of like what we saw last summer?
Yeah, I'm actually going to write about that for later in the week, kind of like who stays, who goes. I know like some guys have player options, like Corey Joseph. I know fans are going to be mad. Corey's probably going to pick up his player option. I don't know
Corey's
if he's getting $5 million.
Corey's the only one with a player option. Everyone else is team options.
Frank and who's Frank? Hamadou.
Yeah, so there's a lot of team options going into next year. So there's
okay. I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm going to write that story later this week.
Yeah. Well, there's, I think they already picked up Sadiq's, right? Is because it says next year's technically a team option. Carson Edwards, obviously. I know it says here Frank. Yeah, it says Frank's a team option going into next year. It says obviously Hami. I know Killian and it says Killian and Stu, but those guys all they'll get picked up
if they haven't already.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think I don't think anything will happen with those guys. I'll say this without saying too much because, like I said, I'm going to write it. I wouldn't be surprised if some people's favorites or lack of favorites at the end of the bench. I'd be curious if they come back.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm curious about. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I think there will be some turnover. I think they're going to try to bring in 2 or 3 talented pieces in combination of whether it's the draft or free agency.
Yeah.
So they got to make room for that.
Yeah, but it's not going to be like year one where it was like we're cleaning out the cabinets and going to the grocery store.
I'd be surprised unless there is like a trade for Bradley Beal or to be made or something like that.
Right. Yeah,
but exactly. I'm not, and that's not me reporting that Bradley Beal is going to become a Piston. Just hypothetically,
it's a player
like the Zion stuff.
If something like that pops up.
Oh God, yeah.
James,
Absolutely.
I got a question for you. More of a personality question versus maybe a basketball question. But over the past, 4 or 5 years that you've been working with the team?
I just finished my 5th year covering the team. Yep.
Okay, so in the 5 years, what player has been the best personality to be around, as far as your opinion? Who is James' best personality in the past 5 years to be around on the team?
I think I actually know this one.
You know it, but there's a few. I'll give you a few because this one's obvious. Go ahead, Sean. Who is it?
It's Ish Smith.
Yep. Nicest guy in the world. Every time he's in Detroit or I'm at whatever team he's on at the point, we always talk before the game. He's a really good dude. One of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Langston Galloway, again, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Fans are going to hate this. Earmuffs, plug your ears. Corey Joseph is one of the nicest, funniest, coolest guys.
Isn't he Canadian?
He's Canadian. Me and Rod talk about this all the time. If fans got to know Corey, he would be their favorite player.
Oh, I'm sure.
100%. Always joking, always has a smile on his face. Good dude. I like Blake's personality. I know he could be moody sometimes, but he was always gave you time if you needed like a one-on-one. He was funny. Bruce Brown is another one. That's one of my favorites.
Bruce.
Luke, really good dude. I always say this about the Pistons. I haven't covered a lot of winning, but I've covered some very good human beings. There isn't one player that I just couldn't stand.
All right, that's awesome. When a lot of other people,
that's not even
maybe one down
that.
in Brooklyn might say differently.
Who's that?
Well, Kyrie.
Oh yeah. I never. Luckily, I've never covered him.
What about Andre Drummond
or Russell Westbrook? Drummond's a good dude.
Hey, say it again for the people all the way in the back of Pistons Twitter.
No, Drummond is and Reggie Jackson too. When I got there, Reggie was really good dude. Drummond like Blake could be moody sometimes, not always in like the moody chat, but like he would go out of his way to talk to you and say what's up and chat about stuff besides basketball, joke. He was I got to know Dre pretty well. Dre's a good dude. Got to know his mom pretty well. She was always around games. It's a good he was raised right. He's a good kid. He's a good dude. I'm happy that he's getting this opportunity too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Now shifting into another part, like we've talked about, the draft is a very interesting thing because, obviously, at this thing right now, we're in the period where we can't really talk about what the Pistons should do yet because we don't know where they're picking. However, with that, I know the Bun and Cardigan show is a Benedict Mathurin pod, and you guys have been very loud about that.
And Keegan Murray.
What stands out about Benedict Mathurin, Keegan Murray? What do you like about those guys? And then what do you think of those, I know there's like the 4 big names, Paulo, Jabari, Holmgren, and Ivy. What do you think of those guys?
To answer the first part, and it's interesting because I've noticed a lot of Pistons fans are like, no, do not take Keegan. He's going to be 22. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, the age thing is crazy to me. Like, when people talk about age, when does a player hit their prime?
Like 29?
27, 28, 29.
Yeah.
So, like, who the F hit the button? Who the cares?
Oh, there we go.
Cares. Yeah. If he's 22, he's got 6-7 years till he's even in his prime. Like, I don't understand.
Right. If anything, the college has matured him to the league,
and he's shown develop. He's not the player he was his freshman year at Iowa, not even close. So he's clearly getting better. And people talk about, yes, in the draft, when you have pick 1, you go for the home run swing. Like, that's your chance to get a star of stars, maybe even pick 2 and 3, depending on the draft. In this draft, like, if you're picking 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, like, what's wrong with just getting a guy who could just be a good NBA player for a long time? And I think I look at Keegan Murray and Benedict Mathurin, I'm like, I'm pretty confident they could be NBA starters for 10 years. They might not be all-stars. They might not wow you every night, but I think they're going to be consistent NBA starters. I compare Ben Matt's game to KCP, and I know Pistons fans are iffy on KCP, but KCP's been an NBA starter for 11 years.
Yeah, and he was a good, dependable player in his time in Detroit. He was pretty consistent.
He helped the Lakers win a title.
He was probably the one pick we had in 10 years that wasn't considered a bust.
So this is my thing. And people are saying with me, if we're picking 4, we're picking 5, I don't want Keegan Murray. I'd rather take a swing on somebody that has more upside. I get it. I get the argument. I don't disagree. But my thing is, why not just, like, what's wrong with also, if the route they want is just to get a guy that they feel like will be a good NBA player for 10 years, have a Tobias Harris like career? Like, what's wrong with that? Why are the Pistons in this situation right now?
Yeah,
because they've drafted like shit for 10 years, and not just like shit. Like, they've drafted guys who are barely in the league or out of the league.
Horrible picks, man.
Brandon
with narcolepsy.
And
So the goal of the draft, everybody thinks the goal is to get a star. Like, yeah, but how many stars are there? There's not very many stars. That's why there's stars. There's very few of them. Like, the goal of the draft is to get a good NBA player for cheap.
It's to get a good player for cheap, and it's to get better. It's to at least get a little better immediately, you would think.
Yes, and I think I just don't understand why everybody's so against Keegan because he's 22 and he might not be an all-star. It's like, well,
yeah.
If he's Tobias Harris, I think you're in good shape. Yeah, I mean, that's just my thing. Like, the Pistons have struggled, and they're in this position now because they have not. It's not that they haven't drafted well. They've drafted guys that are out of the league or barely in the league. The goal is to draft well. There's nothing wrong with being the Raptors. Who on their roster was it besides Scotty Barnes was a top 5 pick?
Right.
Who you look at Denver? Who in Denver was a top 5 pick? Nobody. Who in Portland was a top 5 pick?
Yeah.
Nobody. When they were going. So it's like
even
it's about drafting good players.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. It's about drafting good players. And so I get when people was like, we need to get talent, we need to get upside. We just named off 4 guys that were sure NBA players on a 15-man roster. You need guys that are going to be in the NBA too.
And that whole upside thing, I don't think people are judging this team and what the Pistons should do based on what Troy Weaver has shown to be able to do. He's going to get a player that can slide right into the rotation with those first-round picks. But
ready to play.
With those second-round picks, with those signings after the draft and with free agency, it's wizardry. He's going to get upside. He's going to get – how many different young players did he just I'm just going to just trade for this guy, check him out, and get out of here. He did that with like 3 or 4 guys, man, like Jalen Hands and a couple other guys, let alone the guys that he actually signed. I keep hearing people say, oh, man, upside, or do this or take this chance. I'm like, go and look at how many guys are actually signed to the Pistons on the Motor City Cruise. You know what I mean? Go and look at how many different guys from Carson Edwards to Key, and he's giving these guys some run, and they're coming in and producing. The upside picks, the upside signings, that's going to be there. I'm with you, James. Get somebody who can come in and satiate the lineup and be a good player for Cade Cunningham and for the other players on the court. Because you got to field a team. Look how different the team looked when they went and just added a Trey Lyles who could run the pick and roll.
Wow.
Right.
Then they added Marvin Bagley. You know what I mean? Like, get players who can just play the game of basketball, man.
The Warriors did the same thing too. They took Jordan Poole. I mean, he spent 2 years in college, and look at his upside late in the draft too. Like, just go get a guy who can hoop, man. Honestly.
None of those guys were top 5 picks. That's why I've always hated that thing people call the Warriors a super team.
Mm-hmm.
How are they a super team? They drafted all those guys.
They signed one guy
outside the top 5.
One guy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they signed one guy, and if you had the chance, you'd sure as sign him too.
Yeah. Exactly. I've never got that, but. And I'm not saying don't ever draft for upside. I'm usually of the upside camp, but this particular draft class, it's like it's not. There's even question marks in the top 3 or 4, and we'll talk, or 3, whatever. We'll talk about that. I meant to answer that question, but it's like at a point you have to weigh. Okay, say I want Shaedon Sharpe. Am I sure he's going to be this and that, or am I sure if he is this and we miss out? Dang, if he's not. Could I see a path where he's just fine? Sure. But I look at Keegan Murray. I'm like, can he have a Tobias Harris-like career? Like that's a good player for a long time. So, and I think you asked me what I like and don't like about the top 4 guys.
Yeah, just what your thoughts are of those guys in general.
I think Chet has the best upside as a impact player, meaning I think he can be a B+ or greater on both sides of the ball if all breaks right. And when people talk about his frame, it's not necessarily him just being like too skinny, like that is a concern, but it's more so like guys built like him health wise haven't always had the best luck.
Yeah.
Now
but that side of it's fair. When people just say he can't be good because he's skinny, I'm like, you just don't pay attention. That's what it is.
I think that's the most. I do wonder if he can bang on a daily basis with some of the bigger guys, but that's like
82 games. Yeah,
that's naturally. But like, I think my biggest concern when I talk about his frame is just like the injury history with guys like that.
Yeah.
Jabari, prettiest jumper I've seen in quite some time. Good defensively. I worry about him putting the ball on the floor. But I think of the big 3, I think he's the safest pick. Because at the very worst, you have a pick and pop big, a floor spacing big. Paolo, best off the dribble creator, best passer in this class. Showed some stuff with the jumper. I don't think his jumper is as broken as people made it out to be. Like, he shot the ball well down the stretch of the season. Defensively, concerns, and when he doesn't have the ball, kind of gets invisible. Ivy, freak athlete. Don't know if I believe in the shot, and I'm not a fan of his decision making. And then that's why I kind of look at Keegan Murray. I'm like, shot 38% from 3 in college, cuts well without the ball, not like a creative passer, but makes the right pass. Some questions about his lateral footness, his lateral foot speed defensively, but I don't think he's gonna be terrible on that end. It's like AA, C-, B. You can go down the list, and it's like Keegan, like C+, B+, B+, B+. Like, you know what I mean? So that's kind of just why I'm factoring in stuff like that. Not that I would take all 3 of those names over Keegan, but I'm saying once you get past that,
right.
That's where I kind of start thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. James, I think I think kind of like one last question as we're kind of getting towards the end of the pod, and kind of like kind of getting towards the end here in general with our time. What do you think should be the Pistons' expectation going into next year? I know obviously some of that depends on what moves they make this offseason. However, with what we've seen now, with the kind of moves that both we reportedly know they want to make, but also I'm sure Weaver still has some things close to his vest too. What do you think should realistically be our expectations? Do you think we should slow down before we talk play-in? Because I know last year when we went into the summer league, it was like we thought we had a dynasty on our hands and we were gonna run through the league. But
then you guys let Josh Giddey
summer league Pistons.
Then Josh Giddey came out and it was like, we're not.
Did he get hurt in that game? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, he did. That's right.
Like his first dribble or something like that. So it was like really quick.
It was like the first 5 minutes or something. Yeah.
So expectations. Am I answering what should your guys as fans, or what should the Pistons strive for?
Both.
Pistons should strive for the play-in game. Whether or not they strike out on free agents or whatever. Like, they got interesting young pieces. If they strike out, I'm sure they'll sign some guys. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like plan D or E is like, what if we just like give Gary Harris a 1-year prove it deal and we need a starting shooting guard, like something like that. Not again, not reporting that. Not reporting that, just saying it's like look something like that, just to like let's try to go for the play-in.
It sounds good.
And then if
that was great.
And then if I think the fans, again, I don't want to tell you how to be a fan.
Right.
But I also don't like want you in my mentions pissed off come mid-January. Because
this is a
they
pro
didn't meet
James
your
Edwards III
expectations.
podcast. You're not going to get that here.
So can I say what my expectations are?
Yes.
Instead of telling you what yours should be?
Yes.
My expectation is if they're relatively healthy, they have a chance at making the play-in. I would not bet money that they are 100% a play-in team.
I would agree with that.
I just wouldn't. Without knowing the moves, without knowing what the team looks like. At this point in time, if this team picked up and was this team next year, plus a first-round pick, I would expect them to compete for the play-in. If they didn't get it, I wouldn't freak out, personally. It's still a super young team. I wouldn't freak out. But, again, I'm not a fan, so I understand why people would be pissed. You guys are spending your hard-earned money and time to watch the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, James, thank you so much, man, for being on. Be sure to spend be sure to spend a very small portion of that hard-earned money on an athletic subscription and keep up with what James Edwards III is doing, because the work that he's doing is fantastic. Also be sure to check out, I mean, if you're listening to this, you know what the Bun and Cardigan podcast is. Be sure to go check that out. But James, seriously, man, you are people might give you crap on Twitter and all that stuff, but like you are literally super approachable, one of the nicest guys meeting you in games and stuff this year, just chatting with you. You are just an awesome guy, man.
People's champ.
Well, I appreciate you, man, and I appreciate you guys. No, it's always cool when I run into you guys. People hit me up like, "Hey, can we meet?" And it's like still surreal to me because it's like at the end of the day, I just cover sports, so it's like I appreciate all your guys' love and support. No, it means a lot. It's been nice to get to know you, Sean, and nice to finally meet you guys. And I'm very appreciative of the love that a lot of the Pistons fan base has shown me, and to the Athletic as well. The support you guys have given me and subscribing, like for a team that's pretty bad, your boy does pretty well. So I appreciate you guys. That's all of you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's just been cool. Like I said earlier, it's been cool. I was a fan of yours, but now to, someone that I consider a friend of mine, it's cool just to get to know you. And you're definitely going to have to come back on at some point later this year too. Once we know a little bit more, we got a
little three-peat.
Oh, we got to do a three-peat, man.
All
we
right,
got to.
We'll do a little three-peat. Maybe we'll do a B and C mashup.
That would be fun. I would be so down for that. And if you guys, hey, and like I said, if you ever need extra voices over there, let me know, man. But
I got you, man, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Usually Nick's many voices is enough, but we'll work them out. We'll work some new ones in.
100%. Nick definitely has some new voices, that's for sure. But no, seriously, I want to thank y'all so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow Troy on Twitter at TroySergey44. Be sure to follow my guy DetroitKoolAid, but also Woodward Pistons, what we're doing over there. Be sure to follow my guy Jeff Iafrady as well. And also just be sure to subscribe here, because we're going to be talking all things Pistons, all things NBA, all things playoffs. There's a lot of basketball to be played before this season is even done. But man, there's a lot of stuff that's coming up that's going to be exciting. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. We want to thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time from Half Court. Be sure to subscribe.